So we're going to go over Frindle chapters 7 and 8. This is a chapter that Mrs. Klein read with you all and went through the first part of the questions. So one thing I just wanted to make sure that I showed you again is how exactly for you to be able to open up all of your work. So here I am in day 13, which was April the 2nd. That's the lesson that we're getting ready to go over. And so the first thing I'm looking at is my Google form that has my quiz questions. Here's my video, just in case in my Google form it doesn't open up. But if I click here, I go to my Google form, and as I can see, the same video that is listed over on this page is the same video that I see, excuse me, over here inside of my Google form. The next thing I wanted to make sure that you knew is that right here you have your Frindle. So what I want to do is I want to right click and open it up in a new tab. And once I have it opened up in a new tab, I want to click here and I want to click for me to open it with Google Read Write Chrome. This is what's going to allow me to be able to do my highlighting in my text. So as you are doing your work, I want you to do the same thing. Open it with Google Read Write in Chrome in order to be able to highlight and go back in your text. While that's opening up, I'm going to go ahead and open up my next Frindle chapter. And then my same thing here. I want to open it and Read Write for Google Chrome. All right, so I'm logging in for the first time today, so it's just wanting to make sure that I have an account, and you do because you have Google Classroom. And so now it's starting to work. So while that's working, the first question I wanted to go over was, at the end of the chapter, what was Mrs. Granger's reaction to Nick's idea? So this chapter that they're referring to is chapter 7, because that is a chapter that you read with Mrs. Klein. See if I can't refresh this to get the text up. All right, so here we are. It tells me at the end of the chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll so that way I can see the end of the chapter. So it's not very much on this page, so I'm going to start at But I really didn't have a Frindle with me, said Nick, amazed at his own bravery. And hiding behind his glasses, Nick kept his eyes wide and blank. Mrs. Granger's eyes flashed and then narrowed. With her lips formed a thin, hard line. She was quiet for a few seconds, and then she said, I see. Very well. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss today, Nicholas. You may go. Thanks, Mrs. Granger, said Nick, and he grabbed his backpack and headed for the door. And when he was just stepping into the hall, he said, and I promise I won't ever forget my Frindle again. Bye. So my focus is on Mrs. Granger and how she is reacting to Nicholas. So I'm going to choose this paragraph right here to go ahead and do my highlighting. And I'm just going to read it one more time before I start going over my answer choices. It says, Mrs. Granger's eyes flashed and then narrowed, and her lips formed a thin, hard line. She was quiet for a few seconds, and then she said, I see. Very well, then. I guess we have nothing more to discuss today, Nicholas. You may go. So if you remember, Nicholas had gotten into a little bit of trouble with this new word, which is Frindle. And so here we had a couple of answer choices. And a lot of you chose the word content. So I wanted to go over that word content so that we knew what that word meant. So the word content means that you are just fine with the way things are. You're not really excited about it. You're not upset about it. It's raining outside. Yeah, I'm content. I'm all right. I can stay inside for the day. I'm not mad that it's raining. I'm not really excited that it's raining. I'm just even toned in my feelings. And so Mrs. Granger is not even toned in her feelings. If you remember, Nicholas has described her eyes before and how they turn up to full beam to show when she's upset. So her eyes flashed and then they narrowed. So that means narrow means her eyes got smaller. You know, so instead of her eyes being wide open, her eyes are narrow and she's looking at him. Her lips formed a thin, hard line. So she's not smiling, she's not frowning, she's, you know, and she was quiet for a few seconds. So the better of my answer choices would be that she was frustrated. She was trying to get Nicholas to use the correct word, which would be pen, but he was set on using the word which was Frindle. All right, so the next question I wanted to go over is, how did Mrs. Granger react to the class photo? So in order to be able to answer this question, we need to go into chapter 8. Okay, so mightier than the sword. 2 days later, the photographer came to take class pictures. The 5th grade picture would be taken last right after lunch. That gave Nick and his secret agents plenty of time. And they whispered something into the ear of every 5th grader. All the individual pictures had been taken, and finally it was time for the group picture. So remember, my question is asking about Mrs. Granger reacting to the group picture. So I'm continuing to read to see how she is going to react. Everyone was lined up at the auditorium stage. Everyone's hair looked great and everyone was smiling. But when the photographer said, "Say cheese," no one did. Instead, every kid said Frindle. So when they were going around, Nick and his secret agents whispering to all of the kids in their ears, what do you think they were telling the kids to do? Not say cheese, but to say Frindle. And they held up one for the camera to see. So the cameraman says, "Say cheese." They say Frindle. That's not what was supposed to happen. So the photographer was out of film. So that means he couldn't take any more pictures. So that shot, the shot where everyone says Frindle, that was the only 5th grade group picture he took. 6 of the 5th grade teachers were not pleased, and Mrs. Granger was furious. So we were focusing on Mrs. Granger. So I'm going to highlight that right there. It tells me how Mrs. Granger is feeling. She is furious. What happened to make her so upset? What did the children do? I go back and I look up here. It says, instead of every kid saying cheese, what did they say? They said Frindle. All right, so let's look at our answer choices to see if we can find the best one. Most of you chose A. Mrs. Granger thought that the photograph was humorous. Humorous means funny. There's humor in it. And if we look at that next page, it says that Mrs. Granger was furious. So she didn't think, "Oh, you kids, you cracked me up. Y'all did such a funny thing." No, that was not what they were. She was thinking. She was furious with what they have done. So it was not that she thought it was humorous. Some of you also chose that Mrs. Granger asked the photographer to retake the picture. But if we look at the bottom of that page, it says that the photographer was out of film. I know nowadays we use our camera phones and we can take pictures. But what happens when you can't take any more pictures because you have no more memory, right? That's kind of what happened with him. He ran out of memory and he couldn't just delete his picture and start again. He had all that he could use out of that film. So that was the only photograph that he was able to take. You know, so here, if I read just a little bit further, it says no one had really wanted to make the teachers mad. It was just fun. So the kids weren't trying to make him mad, but I don't see anywhere as we keep going on that Mrs. Granger is saying, hey, photographer man, can you please take another picture? That's not something that happened. She may have wanted to take another picture, but that was not an option. My best answer choice was Mrs. Granger was enraged. That shows me her furious manner, her upset level of upsetness at the time. She was enraged about the photo. All right, so let's look at one more question, which was the last question. It says, how were others affected by Mrs. Granger's and Nick's decision? So I'm going to go scroll down here to the end of the chapter, because I'm looking for Nick and Mrs. Granger's decision, this decision of pretty much going to war over the word Frindle. How did that affect everyone else? So you all chose that many students say the word Frindle. But this is bigger than just the other kids. We want to think about everybody. Okay, so if I look at that last page, it says almost 80 students stayed after school with Mrs. Granger that day. Why? Because remember, she put up that sign that says, if you say Frindle, you're going to have detention. So that's one thing that's happening. You have kids that are having detention. They filled the room and spread out into the hallway. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. The principal had to stay late to help, and they had to arrange 2 special buses to get the kids home. So this is, again, showing me how everyone is affected. So not just them saying Frindle, but Frindle has become a big deal. What's happening? Kids are having to stay late for detention. The principal now has to stay late so that he can help, because there are 80 kids. Not one teacher is just going to watch all 80 kids. Think about when you have a late bus. It's not one teacher that's sitting there. It's several teachers that are sitting and waiting for that bus to monitor all the children. The principal stays late, and he had to arrange 2 special buses to get all of those kids home. And the next day, all the 5th graders, they did it again. So not just, oh, we had to stay late, we got in trouble. They did it again. So again, the principal has to stay late. Again, he has to arrange for other children to be able to get home. And so did a lot of other students, over 200 kids. So there were 80 kids the first time. Now we have over 200 kids. He probably had to arrange even more buses. It says parents called to complain. The bus drivers threatened to go on strike. That means that they are saying, hey, I'm not going to be working all these late days and late nights because Mrs. Granger wants to suspend people. The school board and the superintendent got involved. So I'm going to highlight that as well. There's a lot going on right there. So it's more than just, hey, let's say Frindle. It is, we're saying Frindle, but look at the other people that are affected. The principal, the late bus driver, the parents, the school board, the superintendent. And about this time, the principal of Lincoln Elementary School paid a little visit to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Allen. And they wanted to she wanted to talk to them about their son. So now Nick has gotten a principal visit to his home. All of these things are affecting more than just the kids saying the word Frindle. So our best answer choice were that adults were very angry and children had detention. They had to stay after school late. All right, guys. We will get back up together soon. Bye.